Keith Thurman versus Danny Garcia tonight, March 4th, CBS. What more can you say? Great fight. One of those fights that, again, everyone's got to be excited for. Best versus the best. Danny Garcia really hasn't proven himself at welterweight, but definitely has an excellent resume at junior welterweight, unified titles at that weight class, fought some decent fighters at that weight class, some really tough guys at that weight class. Keith Thurman, again, has come into his own, stepped up his level of opposition in recent fights, has done it gradually. He's been in there with some good fighters, Diego Chavez, Robert Guerrero, a little bit past his prime, but still pretty solid fighter. Sean Porter in his prime, former world champion at welterweight, so that's a tough fighter to have on your resume as well. But this is the thing. Boxing comes down to skills. I mean, obviously, the athletically gifted guys do well in the sport as well, but when you couple that up with skill, which both of these guys have, then you have a complete, pretty tough fighter. And these guys are really solid fighters. I think Keith Thurman in the skills department is a little sharper, a little more versatile. Danny Garcia, again, has been criticized for not being fleet of foot, not really being mobile, and having trouble tracking guys down who are mobile. I thought Mauricio Herrera used really excellent movement against him, constantly kept setting the pace in that fight and changing the pace, changing the angles, changing the geography of that fight. Did not stand still very long. He would go in and out against Danny Garcia. He would fight well on the outside, and he would step off to the side after delivering combinations, never really staying in the line of fire to have Danny Garcia or allow Danny Garcia to be able to return fire against him, because he kept forcing Danny Garcia to chase him around the ring. And again, Danny Garcia really likes to have his feet planted. His money punches that left hook, so really likes to have that front foot really digging into the canvas so he can sit down and set that left hook properly. And in that Herrera fight, as well as the Lamont Peterson fight, both of those guys kept moving. They would stick and move, punch, and as soon as they finished their combination, they would move right out of the line of fire, step off to the side, not just allow Danny Garcia to line them up with the big right hand that he has and be able to follow up with the left hook. Now, talking about the skill set of both fighters, I think Keith Thurman is not a great inside fighter, but what he does do well is he's very dangerous in the mid-range area because he has that sharp left hook, and also he's really good on the outside. He's got an excellent jab, and he's got a good long right hand from the outside as well. Whereas Danny Garcia, he's got a good jab, but it's more or less a punch that he uses to kind of edge closer to his opponent, keep him a little occupied, get him to parry that jab, get him to try to move away from that jab and react defensively to that jab, all the while so he could slide into that mid-range area so he can set down and line up that big left hook that he has, and that short right hand over the top. But Danny Garcia, when he gets too close, doesn't seem very comfortable. Always likes to have that little bit of a space where he could catch people at the end of those punches in the mid-range area and really turn them over short and crisp like. But again, he doesn't seem too comfortable up close. Whereas Sean Porter, when he fought Keith Thurman, made it a little bit difficult for him, as well as Luis Collazo, who got up close, landed an inside body shot. Robert Guerrero made the fight a little bit hard for Keith Thurman. But Keith Thurman, to his credit, although is not a great inside fighter, and Danny Garcia is not a great inside fighter as well, the big difference is Danny Garcia tends to hold and likes to freeze his opponent, which he did against Lucas Matisse in that fight, which was a great performance by Danny Garcia, who I thought had it gutted out to edge out a victory in that fight. I picked Danny Garcia in that fight, and that was just one of those fights where I just thought Danny Garcia would be able to use his range against the shorter Lucas Matisse and be able to measure him a little bit from the outside. Again, Danny Garcia, not a great inside fighter. He's a decent outside fighter, but again, his claim to fame, I think, is that mid-range area where Keith Thurman, I think, is really good on the outside as well as the mid-range area. And I think he's getting better defensively on the inside, and he's also shortening up shots a little bit. He's got that sneaky uppercut on the inside that I think he can land in this fight. He landed it definitely in the Diego Chavez fight, who, again, Diego Chavez is a grinder, really tough inside fighter. Like, I think Keith Thurman gutted that fight out, had some problems in that fight. But although Keith Thurman has had problems with guys who can grind it out on the inside, he still is able to fend them off to some degree, hold his own to some degree, even though that is not his strong point. Whereas Danny Garcia, you know, I've seen him in a lot of fights where I thought that at points he looked lost. I thought in that Herrera fight, he was following him around the ring. He really couldn't pin him down, couldn't cut the ring up very well against him. I thought Lamont Peterson, same thing, couldn't cut the ring off against Lamont Peterson. I thought Lamont Peterson won that fight. I thought the Herrera fight was real close. I actually scored that one a draw, but most people thought Danny lost that fight as well. And as everyone remembers, in Zab Judah, he got off to a real fast start in that fight, but for whatever reason, credit to Zab Judah, he rallied back and made the fight kind of interesting on the scorecards, even though I thought Zab Judah lost the fight. He rallied back and hurt Danny Garcia, busted him up a little bit, and surprised me, because that's a guy, Zab Judah, who was past his prime, and he's the guy who's known to kind of fade late in the fight, whereas it seemed as though Danny faded late in that fight and allowed Zab Judah to make that fight somewhat competitive in the later rounds. So with that being said, who do I think is going to win this fight tonight, and why? Well, both of these guys can crack. Both these guys can crack, but I just think that Keith Thurman can crack a little bit harder, and he has that element of surprise to his punches. I think he's quicker than Danny Garcia. I think he's got quicker hands, quicker feet, and because he's so able to, you know, move and then set his feet quickly to get, you know, to really get those combinations off, I think he has that element of surprise to his punches more so than Danny Garcia. Not that Danny Garcia doesn't throw a feint here and there, you know, throws that wide hook where you don't really see it coming. It's like he slips a right hand and at the same time he throws that left hook, so it almost looks like he's throwing a blind left hook. Because when an opponent throws a right hand against him and he's slipping it, they're just expecting him to slip the punch. They're not expecting the counter. So that's kind of a sneaky punch to his game. We saw him do that in several fights. Eric Morales, he did it too. He did it to Amir Khan as well. And people tried to label that as a lucky punch, which I disagree with totally. But for the most part, Keith Thurman is so fleet of foot and he moves so quickly. He's able to really, you know, move and get set quicker than Danny Garcia. So I think he's going to have that one step ahead advantage type power on Danny Garcia. And that's where I think the difference lies in this fight is, you know, just Keith Thurman being quicker on his feet, having quicker hands as well, and just being able to generate power from the outside as well as that mid-range area where I think Danny is just really dangerous in that mid-range area. I'm not saying he can't generate power from the outside, but I think just Keith Thurman can hurt you in more ways than Danny Garcia can. I think Keith Thurman can knock you out with one shot with either hand, whereas Danny really likes to get that left hook cranking from that mid-range area, and that's where he's most dangerous. Those have been his highlight reel knockouts, when he's got you in that mid-range area and he's just cranking up those left hooks. Whereas we've seen Keith Thurman knock people out in various ways. So that being said, I think both these guys are durable. Both these guys are tough and gritty. I'm not saying a knockout can't occur, but I think that because these guys are just so highly skilled, they're so tough, they're so determined, they have a lot of heart and will, I think this fight's going to go the distance. But I'm going to have to go with Keith Thurman because of that advantage in speed of hands and foot. as well as him just being dangerous from the mid-range as well as the outside, having that surprise element to his punches. I think he's going to hit Danny with shots that he's not ready for, not able to see, and I think he's going to get the jump on Danny Garcia more so in this fight. He's going to be one step ahead, as I said earlier, so that's why I'm going to go with Keith Thurman by 12-round decision in this fight. I think Keith Thurman will win this fight. All right. Till next time, Beeb is out. And of course, I think everyone's going to really enjoy this fight tonight, and I'm looking forward to it. Talk to y'all soon. Peace.